All right, so here we've got a flow that we are trying to basically create files into Google Drive and use the same file name over and over in Google Drive and basically override the file that's already sitting in your Google Drive folder. So Google Drive, as you probably know, allows the same file in a folder with the same name because the name is not unique within a directory within Google Drive. So currently with Celigo, there's not a way whenever you're creating a file with the Google Drive connector, there's not a way to basically say override an existing file. So what this does is it just creates a new file, puts it in the Google Drive folder, because typically in most cases, people aren't overriding files. They're just, a lot of times they're just putting a timestamp for when this new batch of records from, like, let's say your ERP system, NetSuite, or orders or whatever are being put into this folder. So with Celigo currently, since there's not a way to specify file ID, I've created this workaround here. So I've got two flows. I've got this first flow that's grabbing your records from NetSuite in this case, and then the second flow that's basically deduping the files after the fact. So if I go into flow 1 here, you can see I'm just creating files. I do a response mapping with _JSON, and then I just map it to Google Drive file. It's just basically it's the file ID, file type, stuff like that. I then have a post response map script. You don't necessarily need this step. This is just to make it a little bit more efficient. But all this does is it adds a record index into adds a record index into your batch of records here. So if I preview this, well, don't have a sample here, but let me add one. I get record index 0. If I add another, then I get record index 0, 1. And the reason for doing this is so that the subsequent step will only run on the first record index. So it's just a little bit more efficient. So with that, the first thing you're going to want to do is create a lookup cache. So if I come over into resources and lookup cache, I'll create a new lookup cache. You can name it whatever you want, and then click next and save and close. I've already made this one, Google Drive file hold, and you can see it's just key and value, and there's no existing rows in here. Essentially all it is a holding place for here are the files that I have just made from this flow. The second flow will then pick up from this lookup cache and say, okay, I need to process these files to deduplicate that file directory, and then it clears it from the cache afterwards. So it's essentially just a holding location for what files need to be processed for deduplication within its directory. So I come to the Google Drive demo. Again, you can see I've just got after that script, I have a branch, and that branch is just filtering on record index equals 0. And then I have a place file and lookup cache step. So it's just using the integrator IO connection, going to lookup cache, upsert data, and then this is my lookup cache ID, which you can find if you're on that lookup cache. You can find it in the URL here. Oh, sorry, my screen share is not the full screen, but it's in the URL. If you go to that lookup cache, it's at the very end. If I come back into the demo, the mapping here is just pretty simple. It's just a data array, and then it's a key and value pair. In this case, I'm just mapping the file ID from that response mapping as the key, and then the value is just that entire file metadata. So if I preview, I don't have any current valid sample data here, but this is basically what it would be. And when I come to flow 2, sorry, let me go back to flow 1 real quick. In the settings of flow 1, the next integration flow to run is set for flow 2. So whenever this flow is complete and a file is placed there, flow 2 will now kick off and run. So when I get to flow 2, I have a quick export to basically get the data from that lookup cache. So lookup cache, get data of a lookup cache, and then that lookup cache ID. When I preview, there are no records currently sitting there, so it'll just bring me back with nothing. I then get the file parent. So I basically need to find what directory was it placed in. So I have this file ID, and now I need the parent, which would be the folder that that file is sitting in. So this is just a simple, it's just getting that file ID, and it's saying that I want the parent from that. When I preview, there won't be anything. Let me actually just run. I'll run this first flow real quick. And I'll actually turn the second flow off so that we can have some sample data here. So in this first flow, all right, I've exported records. Okay, now that that's done, so I should have that in lookup cache. If I come to flow 2 and preview, you'll now see that I've got it. So I've got the file key, and this is that file metadata. So I've got the file name, the kind of file it is, and ID again. So then I want to get the parent. I can preview, and here's the parent. This would be the folder ID that that file is sitting in. And this is just a simple, again, drive, vfile, really nothing else here. I have a response mapping to do data.0.parents.0, since it's just going to be in one folder. And then I'm mapping it to folder ID. So now I have folder ID. Then I basically I need to find, now that I have that parent, I need to find all the other files in that directory that have the same file name. So this step is basically getting all of those. So I have this, I'm going to files, v3, list files, and I've got a few different things here. One, what fields do I want returned from Google Drive? I'm ordering them, so ordering them by name and created time in descending. So the top one will be the newest one that I don't want to delete, and then everything else after it I would want to delete. And then I've got a query here, and so this query is, it's that folder ID that we got from the last step. So folder ID in parents, and name equal to the, this would be that file name, so sample.json. It's not sitting in the trash, and it's not a folder. So since it's, a file. Preview that, you can see I've got my ID, all that populated with the handlebar expressions. Close out of that. Then I do a response mapping of data to files. This is just so I have a list of all the files returned from that. Then I have a post response map script. And this is just doing a shift. So again, since I don't want to delete the first one, I'm basically just getting rid of the first file in the response and then leaving everything else. So if there is only one file, then it would get rid of it, and my files array would now just be an empty length, as you can see here. But if I had multiple files returned like this, then I'd end up with one. So it's just getting rid of that first one, which is already in order, and then leaving the rest, because the rest of them are the ones that we want to delete. So close out of that. And then I have a delete duplicate file step. It's just going to the files resource, delete files, and then it's passing in that record ID. It's also using the one-to-many path on files, because we need to loop through each of those files and delete each file. So one-to-many path of files, and then delete its ID. And then we need to delete that entry into the lookup cache. So now that we've processed this file and we've deleted it, we need to delete it from the lookup cache so that we don't, run this flow again looking for that same file that's already been deduped from its directory. So this is just a simple lookup cache, delete selected keys, that lookup cache ID again. And then the mapping is just a string array of keys, and the key being that file ID that we stored. And that's pretty much it. So now if I run it end to end, I'll turn this on. You can see in Google Drive, I should have 2 files here. And when I run this first flow, I'll get in queue, and then it should get the items from NetSuite. place in the lookup cache. Second flow kicks off, pulls from lookup cache, and it's deleted those two files and then deleting from the lookup cache. So if I come back to Google Drive, you can see I've got those old two. When I refresh though, now I just have one, and it's with the last mod time of 8:11, which was less than a minute ago. So that's pretty much it. That's how you would deduplicate files in a Google Drive directory with Celigo.